Okay. There we go. Perfect. Can you hear me? Is my audio actually coming through? Doesn't seem like it. Oh, great. Okay, well, I just can't hear it on my computer. That's fine. I don't need to hear it. So, okay, yeah. I've never done a live stream for mobile, and we're just gonna figure this out together right now. But probably not gonna give too much time for people to trickle in. Feel like I'm not really like a live stream channel. I don't really do this, so I don't imagine a lot of people are gonna hop in and go, "Oh yes, finally." But I've been getting a lot of questions over email, or a couple questions in comments that just like keep popping up, and so I figured like I could respond to people privately over email, or I could respond to all these comments individually, or maybe I should just like make some time to actually answer these questions. So that sounded fun. So we're just gonna chat for like, I don't know, 30 minutes to an hour. And I have a couple questions that I like specifically want to talk about, but feel free to pop stuff in the chat if there's anything that you've been like, I don't know, interested in. So, yeah. I'm just gonna get right into it. So, I feel like one thing that I've been asked a couple times is like, what are my actual politics? And I've been reluctant to answer that. I've had a few people ask me like, wait, okay, so like what? Your last video said anarchist in it, so what, you're an anarchist? Are you a social democrat? Are you a communist? Are you a liberal? I've gotten a lot of comments from people saying like this is a painfully liberal video. That was one that like, okay. Most of the comments that semi-hurt my feelings come from other people on the left, which I think is pretty common. I'll occasionally get, some, I think, centrist or right-winger who's like, oh, like, can you define fascism for me? Or, like, is the fascism in the room with us right now? And for one thing, yes, it is. But for another, like, I just don't really care. Like, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to other left of center people. And so then when somebody that I would consider sort of my ideological peer is looking at my work and going, this is weak. It's a bummer. I don't love that. But the reason that I haven't specifically aligned with a specific political label, the reason that I still, even now answering this question, won't say like, yes, I'm a social democrat, or yes, I'm a communist, or yes, I'm an anarchist, or whatever, is that I just don't find that in the work that I'm doing day to day, or week to week, or year to year, that it's particularly relevant, I want to build structures that enable individual people to come together and like build alternate power structures to the ones that are like controlling our lives. And, some people might look at that and they might say, well, that sounds like a little bit communist of you. It sounds like you want the workers to rise up and, seize the means of production. And I just don't really think about that much. I don't think about it that much. Like when I was walking into the office and trying to build support for my coworkers unionizing, I wasn't thinking there's some grand vision I have that someday results in like a full worker takeover of, my entire industry. Or I was just so focused, so narrowly on the thing that I was trying to accomplish that fed into this idea of what I, thought we should be building toward. So whenever I'm in these leftist spaces and people are kind of saying like, well, like I'm not this, like I'm this, or I'm not this, I'm this. I'm like, does this help me? Does this help us build what we're trying to build? I'm, of course, okay with getting pushback on that. I could see somebody saying like, well, we need to have some sort of grand unified theory. I even made a video about how important it is to have some future vision that we're pushing toward. And for some people, that is like a stateless paradise, and for some people that is nationalizing the tech industry, and for some people that is full worker control across every industry. Those are very different visions, like they are. So like, yeah, it's funny to start off like specifically not answering a question. Like, I'm not going to say I am one thing or another thing or another thing. For me, like, my personal politics are like, what do I need to do right now and in the next 5 years and in the next 10 years to build the kind of country and world that I think will like promote the most justice and reduce the most suffering. So this is where I will probably get some criticism from people for being a little bit incrementalist. I think that criticism is kind of fair. I think incrementalism is like controversial for a good reason. I do think that there is a danger to getting these like small wins and getting used to having these small wins that might make people like complacent, you know? Like, oh, we're just gonna drip feed you little signs of progress so that the systems will remain as they are. You'll feel like you're making the... Oh, hi, Squid Tips. Aw, yeah, I mean, I loved your anarchist calisthenics video, so yeah, hello, good to see you. Yeah, anyway, this is where I think that we need to be able to think in two spaces at once. I think that, yes, incrementalism is weak. I think that we need to be looking to push broader scale changes to really be bold and inventive in how we are conceptualizing a future for our world. But I also don't think that harm reduction is pointless. I think that it is good if more people can eat tomorrow. I think it is good if more people are safe tomorrow. Weighing the trade-offs in, like, well, if we are, you know, keeping enough people like temporarily safe and temporarily fed and temporarily housed, is that going to stop us from pushing for greater like revolutionary action? Like, it's worth weighing. It's worth weighing, and is honestly, I feel above my pay grade sometimes. But yeah, that is, I don't know, that's my answer to that question. And I mean, also like for this stream, part of my motivation is I would like to be able to pull this to share at other times, be like, okay, like I answered this in this stream, like go check out this timestamp. So this is just going to be like a huge thought dump. Thanks for coming along for the journey. Another question that I got asked a couple times over email and a couple times on Patreon, which was funny, was like, you live nomadically. What does that mean? Like, what do you mean you don't live anywhere? How do you do that? And also why? Maybe I should just like type in the chat like what question I'm currently answering so that if people hop in. What does living nomadically mean and how does it work? Cool. Yeah. So I would be curious to hear from people in the chat, like if this is something that you've ever personally done or if this is something that you have looked into or been curious about, because there are a lot of different ways that people live nomadically and have for centuries and longer. But I think that people started to get really interested in the idea of nomadic living during like, you know, the van life craze on Instagram. What it means for me is I live in my Subaru. I have a Subaru Outback and it's all just set up with a little bed. I have some shelving. I sometimes fold my clothes and they sometimes go in a box. Sometimes they are on my bed. Oh, the weirdest thing about living in a car is that if you're like a messy person, you know, when a messy person lives in an apartment, sometimes you'll have like your laundry on your floor. Sometimes you'll have like the breakfast that you were eating in bed and it's like sitting right next to your bed and you're like, God, I'm a garbage person. I'm such a disaster. I need to clean my room. But when your room is your bed, is your car, that situation can get pretty horrible pretty quickly. I've like woken up in my car and then realized that I was just like sleeping with my legs on like a bunch of bananas or something because I just like didn't put my groceries away. So, I'm probably the worst possible person to be living in my car, which just goes to prove that anyone can do it. I moved into my car in May of 2021, I think. And I just did it kind of, honestly, out of desperation. I realized that I hated what I was doing. And so I thought, like, well, okay, like, people will, like, drive across the country all the time, go find somewhere new to live, like, start fresh. I just enjoyed the process so much. I just enjoyed being in the car so much that I just didn't even do the second step of finding an apartment. So oftentimes I'm asked, like, where do you stay? Where do you live? Like, how do you eat? And if you've watched any van life content on Instagram, it is nothing like that at all for me. It is not glamorous. It is not. I don't have, you know, like some beautiful like kitchen countertop or whatever. I don't have a sink. I don't have a shower. I honestly didn't even have a cooler. I didn't even have a cooler until this year. I don't have a stove. So what food looks like for me in the car is a lot of just like vegetables that won't go bad. A lot of carrots, a lot of bell peppers. Who is that? They can listen too. Anyway, a lot of non-perishables, a lot of nuts, and people will often say, like, I could never live in my car because I would just be eating fast food all the time and that's so expensive. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to. I don't know. I think that, like, in America, the connection between fast food and road trips is so tied together that people just assume that me living in my car, I'm eating like McDonald's for breakfast and like KFC for lunch and then like Burger King for dinner. And so I'm spending like $50 a day because that's what fast food costs now. But like, no, getting like some red bell peppers, some hummus, some carrots, and some walnuts, it's not a good, like, your standards, I think, have to be really, really, really low to do what I'm doing successfully. And I have very low standards. I think my low point for food was 2 summers ago. I was driving across the country and I had a container of raw quick cook oats. And my plan with it was to, you know, pour the oats in some water, go into a gas station, microwave it, and have that be my breakfast every day. But then at some point I was just like, is it really that different to just like pound these raw quick cook oats and then like chase it with some water? And then I don't even have to go into a gas station. And so that's what I started doing for breakfast. And sometimes I think back on that and I'm like, this really is like the lifestyle of, like, I'm like the raccoon of people, but I'm at peace with that. So, yeah, I'm trying to think of like, what would other people be interested in even knowing about like living nomadically? Jobs, I guess. Jobs is the big one. People will be like, how do you support yourself? And the answer is kind of piecemeal. I mean, digital nomads did not start like the trend of nomadic living, and like van life did not start the trend of living in cars. Like, deadheads have been doing that for decades. Surfers have been doing that for decades. Seasonal nomad work has been a thing for a very long time. So what I'll frequently do is, you know, in the ski season, I'll go to a ski town and I'll work in a restaurant in a ski town. They don't care if you're only around for 3 months. Like, most restaurants will not be stoked if you roll up and say, hi, I want a job, please. I'm leaving in April. They'll be like, what? No, what do you mean? Go away. But if you're hitting up a place that's specifically in their tourist season, they need you now. And they don't need you in April. They would actually really like it if you fucked off in April so they could stop paying you during the slow season. So that's mostly what I do. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to have a remote job. That was me for the last year. and then I got laid off, and that's okay. um, I'm seeing some questions come in. I feel like I can answer this pizza question really quickly, so let's just how does one eat a whole pizza? I can have at most, I think, one slice of pizza, and then I feel like I want to fall over. It's just I don't know. People are stronger than me, I think. Mail. Okay. How do I get mail? Oh, I don't. I do not get mail. I have a couple different people who are sort of my collaborators throughout the country. I have a friend in Kentucky. I have a friend in Colorado, which is where I am currently. And then I have a friend in Washington. And just depending on wherever I'm going to be, I will send mail to their address and then just thank them profusely and buy them food and stuff, because getting someone else's mail is really, really annoying. For the most part, though, I will tell people, like, if you need to reach me by mail, you should give up. Yeah, that's the answer to that. And then, okay, I see a question about change makers, and I feel like that's a good way for me to get into the other thing that I wanted to talk about, which is, organizing. Although first I will say, in terms of how do you live in your car in the winter in Colorado, right now I'm very lucky. The nomadic community is so strong and supportive. I rock climb, so I meet a lot of people at campgrounds. Like I live at campgrounds probably most of the year, and it's cheap. You'll end up frequently paying like $3 to $5 a night. The community is good, and then you'll meet people from all over, and they'll just tell you, like, oh yeah, if you want to roll through Wyoming, then you have a bed with me. So I try not to couch surf too much, because I want to make sure that I'm living this lifestyle because I am able to be self-sufficient enough in the lifestyle, not because my friends are extremely, extremely generous. So right now, like, I'm paying a friend to rent a room because I'm still recovering from surgery. And so when my friends found out I was getting surgery, they were like, please tell me you're not recovering in the Subaru. And I told them, no, don't worry. That's not going to be physically possible. But yeah, living in the car in the winter, I don't have a heater or anything. Don't say too much about yourself, online predators. I will try to exercise my good judgment. Thank you. Yeah, I don't have any heater or anything. The coldest night I've done in the car was -1. That was on Snoqualmie Pass a couple years ago. I got stuck on the highway, and that's one of the best things about living in your car, is that if you get stuck on the highway, doesn't matter. You're already at home. Whatever, just climb in the back seat, read a book. It's fine. So that feels like a little bit of a superpower, but I basically had to pull over to the side of the road, and I went to bed, and it was so cold. But I have a sleeping quilt and a sleeping bag and a sleeping bag liner and like 6 blankets, and I have had a lot of nights where I've had to use all of them. And then I guess the other thing about living in your car and having low standards is that you will get very used to sleeping in 3 layers of clothing. Most nights in the fall and spring, I'll be wearing a base layer, pants, a top base layer, a hoodie. I'll wear a beanie, and then sometimes just like a full like balaclava basically. And I sleep in a winter coat like very often. And so like I climb out of my car in the morning and I'm just like fully, completely dressed. I think that like before I moved into my car, I would have thought that was like really uncomfortable and terrible, but it's like you just get so used to it. So, okay, I love answering car questions because genuinely I love doing this so much. I love living in my car so much. I think it is really empowering. And it's the kind of lifestyle that you don't get into like without something going wrong. Like nobody's doing amazing and then moves into their car. That's not a thing. You talk to other nomads and my favorite question for them is, oh, how did you get on the road? And the vast majority of them are like, oh yeah, well, I was, struggling with addiction, or I had a really terrible breakup, or I lost my job, and then they've just like built this like beautiful life for themselves that is like something that they probably never would have imagined. If you asked like 12-year-old me, like, hey, how do you feel about the fact that you're going to be living in your car when you're 30? I don't think I probably would have had the framework to possibly feel good about that. I would have probably thought, like, what the hell is wrong with me? What decisions did I make that, led me to that point? But yeah, it was the right choice for me, and I'm like always happy to answer more questions about it. So someday I'll make like a full video about living in my car. I do not know why I haven't yet. It's kind of amazing to me that I've been a YouTuber for 5 years, and I've lived in a car for 4 years, and I've just never made a video about the fact that I live in a car. I don't know. The question, so is it really a choice? That's interesting. So for some people, there is definitely like a privilege difference within the car living community. And I think that it's important to recognize that at every point. There are people who would not prefer to be living in a car right now, but are. And they should not have to be. That's, I think, pretty uncontroversial. Like, I definitely believe that housing is a right. Everybody should be able to have access to stable housing if that's what they desire. And I also think that if you don't want to have stable housing, you shouldn't have to. I would say, like, for me, when I first got into the car, I don't even know if it was a choice. I think that my mental health was so poor at that time that I don't know how much I was really making choices. I think I was just trying to continue existing in whatever way I could possibly manage, like, day by day. And I think about this all the time. I just got so lucky. I got lucky because I stumbled into a lifestyle that just so happened to make me extremely happy. I didn't know that existed for me. I used to be the kind of person who just thought, like, oh, happiness is a thing that other people get to have, and I don't get to have that. Like, but I don't know. I hope that is true for everyone. I hope that, all of my friends who are currently struggling with with similar feelings, get to have that same experience of just lucking into something that, like, brings them a joy that they, like, didn't even know was possible on this earth. And then in terms of would I ever consider living in an EV? Yeah, I would. Definitely. There are some really good EV options for car living. And if I do this long enough to get another car, absolutely. I make very small adjustments to try to make my lifestyle sustainable. Is anything we do sustainable? I don't have a roof box. This is like the weirdest hill for me to die on. And I don't even really care if people think that this makes sense or not. Like, for me, like, it's just a thing that I want to do. Having a roof box, if you're driving across the country, does reduce your fuel efficiency, not an insignificant amount. And you could just instead not drive across the country. Every time I tell people that I don't have a roof box for fuel efficiency reasons, they like to say, like, you know how negligible that is? Do you know how little that matters in the grand scheme of things? And yeah, I do. I don't know. That's what I'm doing. I don't want to have a roof box. So, I would always like to find ways to make my lifestyle more sustainable, even though, yes, I am just one person, and making marginal improvements in my own life is not going to change the entire world. I don't really care. You can probably tell from my videos that, like, I just choose to believe that my choices matter, even if that is probably naive. I think that it makes me feel more connected to the world, and I'm gonna have to think more also about how I explain that own little bit of my personal philosophy, because I think that it just like doesn't really make that much sense, but I usually also don't have to explain it very often. Um, so yeah, the Changemakers series. Somebody asked a question, how did you like come up with that? And I'm actually gonna update the chat. Current question, anything Changemakers related. Yeah. So oh, thank you. That's really sweet of you. Yeah, the Changemakers videos are interesting to me because when I started my channel, May 2020, I published my very first video the same day that I officially quit my job. And that was the job where I had been doing all of the climate organizing that I talk about in the series. I always had the idea that I would want to talk about organizing at some point on the channel. It, was mostly centered around games, UX, storytelling for years. And always in the back of my mind, I was like, I have to talk about the organizing stuff because the US political climate was getting so charged May 2020. Yeah, like just watching everything become so divisive and watching all the people around me starting to lose faith and lose hope and look for things that they could do, but they were sort of grasping at straws because all of our problems seem so huge. Like, how can any of us decide what it is that we want to do? I felt that I could offer something through these experiences that I had had, but it just felt so scary to release political content online for a lot of reasons. Like, I, for one thing, didn't want to feel like I was putting my other organizing friends on blast. Because initially, like, I hate to say it, the Changemaker series was going to be a little bit more of like, here's what organizers shouldn't do. And like, here's how organizers shouldn't talk to each other. And here's how organizers should support each other. Because I did not have a 100% phenomenal, empowering, wonderful organizing career. It was hard. It was filled with just strife, on every level. You're struggling against the company itself, and that's scary enough because you walk into the workplace every day knowing that you're making yourself a target. But then you all know that leftist infighting is a thing. That doesn't like stop when you get out into the real world. Like leftist infighting is a thing within organizing spaces, within a single room where you are trying to collaborate. There will be people who are, kind of needling each other and just squabbling over the most frustrating things. So the Changemakers series initially was me airing my grievances about organizing. But I felt guilty about that. I didn't want to discourage people, How would it feel to watch a set of YouTube videos where this jaded, burned out person was like, hey, you should organize, but also here's why it sucks a lot. I would not have felt like I was contributing to a broader mission. I would have felt like I was being, I don't know, unfair to the people that I'd worked with and discouraging the people who really just needed encouragement. That being said, there's a word I've been thinking about a lot recently, which is inoculation. Not like, the vaccine type, but when organizers are talking about conducting one-on-ones, basically a one-on-one is kind of the like base element of an organizer's toolkit. It is talking to a person in your workplace or in your community, etc., and trying to sort of bring them in on the mission. It's sort of a two-part. Like, you want to inform them about what you're doing, and you want to encourage them to help, but also you want to understand their concerns, because organizing is a community effort. You don't just... A good organizer does not just say, here's what we're doing, come with us. A good organizer says, hey, you're part of this community. What do you need? Like, what's ailing you? Help me understand so that I, as a community organizer, can make sure that I have the full picture of what people need. I just saw that some questions came in, so I'm going to take a second to read those. How do you work with people to organize even when you disagree on some smaller things? Yeah, so I definitely want to talk about that. And both of these are good questions. Any creators who inspire you. I have something to say about both of these for sure, but I shouldn't interrupt my own train of thought. Inoculation. In a one-on-one, I was taught that this is not universal, but many organizers will follow an AEIOU playbook. The A being agitate. Like, oh my gosh, aren't you so frustrated that this new policy was just rolled out? I'm frustrated. Oh, isn't it unfair that our boss can just unilaterally make these decisions and, like, we don't get a say even though we're the ones who get affected by it and we know what it takes to do the work, yada yada. And then E is educate. So I won't go into all of these too in depth, but you'll want to kind of bring people in on, like, well, you know, maybe here's what these other people did that was effective, and here's what we're trying to do right now, and we're hoping that this will be effective, and bring them in on the concept of collective action a little bit. I think the inoculation I step is underrated. Initially, I was taught that... I also hate AEIOU. Yeah, thank you. I also hate it. But I also just, I don't like starting with agitate. It's like, we're all agitated constantly. We're all angry all the time. That I don't want... When I was using AEIOU, I felt like my role was to schedule coffee with a coworker and then fucking piss them off and ruin their mood. And so the way that I was taught this approach, I don't agree with it. But when you are at the kind of like inoculation step, you are telling your coworker what you need to tell them so that they can get into organizing knowing that it's risky. You're letting them know that it'll be a hard fight. It'll be a long battle. That bosses don't like it when you're talking about unionization in the workplace. You're trying to let people know what they need to know to stay safe while they're doing this. And so that they go into this not having been kind of lied to. Like, you don't want to get your coworker fired because you get them super stoked on the idea of standing up to the bosses, and then you don't have any sort of conversation about how to do that safely or wisely. But I think that what I want the Changemaker series to do is this sort of other form of inoculation, which is preparing people for the fact that organizing doesn't always feel good. I cannot just rah, go organize, lie to people, and tell them that it's always gonna work. They're always gonna love every single one of their collaborators. They're always gonna feel totally aligned with everything that they're, doing. No, it's hard work. And sometimes you're gonna end up in 3 meetings in a row that feel like you just wasted your evening, You're gonna end up in a 2-hour meeting that just straight up didn't even need to happen. Like, not even, like, could have been an email. Like, why are we here? And that doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. That just means that organizing's hard. And it's not always gonna be enjoyable. And you are going to have fellow organizers who really let you down, because we're all just people. Like, you're gonna need support from someone, and they're going to, like, drop the ball, or you're going to see some isms that you would really hope you wouldn't see in leftist spaces. I think people need to be prepared for that reality. And I think people need to understand that it's important that we do these things anyway. So that's kind of what I want to bring into some future Changemakers videos. This knowledge, or this truth that some things are uncomfortable, but we do them because they're important. They're not always going to make us feel amazing, but things that are hard are sometimes worth doing. So, yeah. In terms of, like, how do I work with people when we disagree on some of the smaller things? It's a negotiation all the time. Like, I was talking to somebody that I'd organized with previously. We had a phone call a few months ago, and I was really jazzed about a campaign that I thought would be a good way to work together again. We're chatting, we're both really excited, we have the same sort of things that we're really fired up about. And then she says, well, I'm working on this campaign right now. If you want to plug in, we are doing an open letter. And I was like, really? Because, like, we've done open letters together, and that was good, but that was also a different time. That was a time when open letters were a little bit more provocative, because people weren't used to tech workers kind of standing up to their employers. People weren't used to tech workers necessarily really having, like, a voice that's just like, you're a drone within the company. But that was years ago. Open letters are not provocative anymore. We're seeing open letters in the tech industry every couple months, which is not to say that they, like, shouldn't be done. This is where I start to feel like kind of a jerk. I just would like to see some different, more creative actions. I have been reading a lot of, like, Saul Alinsky books recently, and I think that the, like, Alinsky sort of school of organizing is specifically interesting because their tactics were always so creative. They were constantly finding ways to be funny, to be a little, like, they're just, a lot of the tactics are very silly. If you've seen the, Home Depot protests recently where people would go and, like, buy an ice scraper and then return it and then buy it again and return it and then buy it again, that's a very, like, Alinsky tactic. That's exactly the kind of tactic that he described in some of his books, where you'd try to come up with some action that was not illegal. That's not illegal. You can go and buy and return an ice scraper as many times as you want. You're doing an action that you are so allowed to do, but you're doing it in such a way that makes it impossible for a business to run. And I think I've been so inspired recently by these disruptive tactics that are partially newsworthy because, like, they're funny. And then I look at the petitions and open letters and I'm like, it's not that a petition is always the wrong move. And you can also have a petition and an open letter in addition to other actions. Like, an open letter can be really nice for having an easy place to direct people to so they understand your demands and so they understand the problem. Like, an open letter can be educational. And a petition can be nice for at least just being able to point to large-scale buy-in for your demands. But I think that when you're disagreeing on, tactics, or you're disagreeing on what kind of action you want to promote, you can't decide, that does get kind of tense, because, yeah, you end up feeling like you're arguing with the other person, calling them, like, ineffective, or, like, I feel like I've definitely been called naive in a lot of organizing circles because I have not, like, explicitly disowned individual action as a, as something that we should encourage, but that's also a different topic. It does make it harder to work with other people if you feel like you are not always constantly marching toward the same thing. If you feel like your coworkers like or your collaborators don't think your ideas are good, then it's harder to work together. Do I have solutions for that is the thing. Just I don't know, yeah, like basic respect and humility. Like most of us are constantly in uncharted territory. This is not like I'm guessing I guess I'm also wondering how to de-escalate when there's more tense conversations. Yeah. I think that always like coming back to values, because I do remember like that conversation got a little bit tense and we had to sort of pull it back to like, okay, yes, like what we're doing is really hard and both of us are very passionate and we really care about the same things, and reminding the other person like, I respect you, I respect the work that you do, I like working with you, and both of us were heated because we're passionate, but at the end of the day, both of us are trying to come up with solutions in an arena where there are not a lot of answers. Nobody yet has figured out how to unionize Google. So you can read strategy books and like playbooks, but it's a lot of this is just going to be so situational because every campaign is different and every campaign is new. So I don't know if that answered that question very well. I'm going to think about that more, because also chances are like some of these things that I get thinking about in streams like this will definitely like make it into future videos once I've had the time to let them digest a little bit. I had another like, when you disagree on some of the smaller things, I had another example. Okay. There was an action that some of us took. Yeah, wow. It's so weird when like all this stuff starts coming back. So there was an April Fool's action that my organization participated in. And some of us were really not sure it was a good idea because it basically involved telling a sort of like a Yes Men style joke. I don't know if you know the Yes Men. They're very worth looking into. They're a duo of activists that will kind of run like prank style actions. They'll go to conferences pretending to be speakers, and then they'll give a speech in front of a PowerPoint that just exposes how ridiculous the entire conference is or the entire industry is. You go open a new tab and just search like the Yes Men Save the World. There are some like good documentaries about the Yes Men and their actions, and they're really good watches if you want to be inspired by some more creative actions. Most famously, one of them went on a news broadcast posing as a representative for, I forget which company it was, but he basically issued a false statement on behalf of the company saying, oh, this big tragedy that just happened overseas, we own that. We are so sorry. That was our fault. We will put in safeguards to make sure that never happens again. And we are going to be paying like restitution to the people who were affected. And then it was revealed to be a lie. It was revealed that the Yes Men pretended to be a spokesperson. The company had no intention of paying damages to the victims. So that was really controversial. A lot of people said, hang on, didn't you just get these victims' hopes up? Wasn't that kind of fucked up for you to do that? Like, what is wrong with you? And they ended up, like, conducting some interviews with some of the people who would have received damages. And those people said, like, oh, no, I loved that action. I thought it was really good to see what the company, like, should have done. It was, like, good to sort of stick it to them and show them what they should be doing. and then show everyone else in the world what they're not doing. I'm sure that actions like that are controversial, there probably are some people who saw that statement get exposed as a lie and thought, oh, god damn it, like I had some faith in the world and now it's taken away. Fuck. Well, we had one of those. Our campaign had one of those. We played into kind of an April Fool's joke that someone else had made, which fraudulently claimed that our company was agreeing to all of the workers' demands. And so we saw this April Fool's website that someone else had made, and we went, wow, this is a pretty cool website. Kind of a funny April Fool's joke. Yeah, like, let's publicize this. And a couple of us were like, but wait, won't it be really disappointing when people figure out that this isn't true? And so we were really split internally. Like 50% of us thought this was a terrible idea. 50% of us thought that this was a great moment to show what our company should be doing and maybe put a little bit of pressure on the company to do the right thing. So we just ended up deciding, you know what, like, fuck it. Let's do it. Let's publicize this April Fool's website. And sure enough, some people were like really disappointed. They, emailed us and they said, hey, like, this ruined my day to find out that this wasn't true. You should never have publicized this April Fool's website internally. So that always stands out to me as the biggest example of, like, we had a huge disagreement internally. We just decided to take a shot, and then figuring out afterward how to not, assign blame, but just talk to each other about what happened and why the action was maybe less successful than we would have hoped. Some people thought that, of course, like, everything's too complicated. Some people thought that it was great. Some people saw the April Fool's website and they were like, oh, this made me feel really motivated to see this change transpire in reality. Like, oh, I found it so motivating to see this company release this grand statement. Like, it made me feel, like, ready to get up and fight. But because not everybody felt that way, because some people did feel disappointed and hurt by something that our organization publicized, we had to come together internally and not throw stones at each other. This was your idea. I said that we shouldn't do this. But rather, as an organization, figure out, okay, well, like, what went wrong? Like, what do we do next? So, yeah, I guess the TLDR of all of this is just keep reminding yourself that we're working together. Just, as Jibby says, offer as much, like, grace as you can. And I do feel like I want to address some of, like, the isms that I see in organizing, because, like, this is definitely something I'm writing about in a Changemakers video. I've had some really disappointing conversations with some people who I think, as leftists, should know better. But I have to turn that back on myself and remind myself, like, I've not always been perfect. I've not always said the right things or acted without bias. And you're going to end up in some organizing spaces that disappoint you in that way, unfortunately. In one of my old organizing committees, I noticed, that we were just hemorrhaging all of our female support. All the women were leaving. At some point, I was the last one. And so I was looking around at this table where there are just no other women. And I'm like, hang on. There used to be women here. And so I talked to one of the other members who had been there for longer than me. And I said, hey, have you noticed that, like, this person stopped coming, this person stopped coming, this person stopped coming, this person never came back, this person never came back? Like, what do they all have in common? What's going on here? And, oh my gosh, what this person, I swear to God, what this person said back to me, absolute worst way to respond. Absolute worst way. They didn't go, oh yeah, maybe we should look into that. Huh, that's interesting. Like, we should probably talk to those people and see what happened. This person said to me, maybe all of those people just didn't have what it takes. And I was like, huh. I just pointed out that all of the women left our organization. And your response is, maybe they just didn't have what it takes? That's not a good response. Oh, what do I mean ism? Okay, yes, it's kind of a shorthand. Racism, sexism, anti-Semitism. Homophobia, I think, falls into that, even though it doesn't end with ism. But an ism is basically just kind of a stand-in for bias. But yeah, so I told this person that was kind of messed up. Like, not only do I think that was kind of a sexist response, probably like without meaning to be, because there did end up being a reason that all these women left, and not trying to look into that did perpetuate some kind of like structural misogyny in our organization. So sexism might not have been the intent, but it was the result. But also, if you're losing a bunch of people from your organization, you should probably try to figure out why. Like, what does it say about you as, like, an organizer if you're not talking to people who don't want to be in your organization anymore and trying to learn from them? So I ended up scheduling meetings with all of these people, which, like, I'll just say my annoying thing about, like, okay, only woman takes on the sole responsibility of talking to all of these people who left to try to figure out what was going on. And yeah, sure enough, all of these women had experienced really classic sexism. They'd been talked down to. They had been, they felt that there was this sort of, God, all of this would take so long to explain. Basically, all of these women ended up kind of making this decision, like, I don't feel like I'm respected in this organization, so I don't need to be here anymore. And that did teach me one also very important thing, which is that, like, marginalized folks, underrepresented folks, women, queer people, people of color, are often like the canary in the coal mine for your organization. If a lot of them are leaving, like, you have a problem. You have a problem. And honestly, the problem is probably affecting everybody, but oftentimes what I've noticed is that people of color and women and queer people will be the first to say, like, hey, this shit is toxic and I don't need to be here anymore. So pay attention to that. I've seen this on, like, engineering teams too. Like, I was about to join an engineering team. All of the men were telling me how great it was, how I should totally join. And then all of a sudden, the two women on the team, they just, like, they walk up to me down the hall like the twins from The Shining. And they pull me into a conference room. Hey, we have to talk to you about our team. And then they just told me everything that was wrong with the team. There was some guy who was a high performer, but he was making the culture miserable. Like, he was constantly being defended by management, even though it, blah, blah, blah. They were right. Within 4 months, the team exploded. I did not join that team. But yeah, so that's just a little interesting side note. I'm a Dork says, in my DSA chapter, there's a noticeable lack of people of color, but I don't think it makes sense based on local demographics. Definitely a lot of women, though. Yeah, these are things to triage. I'm also, like, I'm the wrong person to speak about, like, most demographics. I can obviously speak very candidly and from a lot of experience when I talk about losing, like, women from an organization. There are campaigns that I've tried to learn from where people of color have talked about their experience feeling excluded or not valued, not listened to, like their, you know, concerns were not being centered, even though many of them had every right to be centered in a campaign. And I think that, like, anytime a campaign explodes or anytime somebody releases a doc about not feeling like they were treated right in a campaign, I try to read it, because I'm like, some of these things, I just want to make sure that I'm not doing them. Because all of us have bias, and all of us have, like, things that we're not personally seeing. It's funny, I keep having all these examples, like, popping up in the back of my mind, and if I think of it later, I'll come back to it. But, let's see. Yeah, if your organization ends up attracting more of these underrepresented groups, make sure you keep them. Actually, you know what? That reminded me of what I wanted to say. Yeah, so, the reason frequently that I think people of color, queer people, and women have not felt respected in certain campaigns is because there is this, like, divide in organizing right now. And I don't think it's a problem. I just think it's a thing, and we just need to be aware of it. A lot of people get into organizing because they read some articles, and then they listened to some podcasts, and then they read some books, and then this journey of personal education brought them to the point where they realized that organizing would be... I have never seen that. It's about safety. I don't know what you're referring to. But yeah, so certain people will get into organizing because they recognize that there is a need for people to get more active, support each other, and fight these entrenched power structures. And then some people get into organizing because they are actively being mistreated. And maybe they have never even heard the term organizing. Maybe they have not... Just dropped my laptop. That's fine. I don't need that. I'm on my phone. Maybe they are contract workers about to be laid off, even though their contract says that they should be around for another 8 months or something. Or maybe they're warehouse workers that are being forced to work in the middle of a pandemic. Very often, the people who are treated the worst in workplaces will come into organizing. I'm not going to say that, like, you know, nobody is, like, well-read and also mistreated. Like, that's not true. But I have noticed a pattern where I've worked with some people who were Amazon delivery drivers, and they started organizing because they realized that their workplace was so shit that they had to do something about it. And then I've seen, like, white-collar software engineers, like, talk down to those people because they don't know some specific word. Like, or they'd never read some specific book. That's my least favorite thing to see in organizing spaces. And I think that that's what often contributes to these organizations, like, losing people. Because oftentimes a bunch of very, like, well-read organizers or aspiring organizers will recruit people and then sort of play teacher and sort of talk down to people who don't, like, purely on the basis of, like, how much theory have you read. That is not the way that we judge how effective someone is. It's good to educate yourself. It's great to give people book recommendations, but just because somebody hasn't read the same books as you doesn't mean that they're, like, a less effective organizer. That doesn't track at all. What organizing spaces have you been associated with specifically? I have been involved with a couple. One of them was the Tax Amazon campaign in Seattle. One of them was... I'm not sure that I want to, like, so obviously say, like, which workplaces I've organized in. Like, this doesn't like feel smart, but I've worked with CWA and a few workplaces, and I can say that I've worked with Amazon Employees for Climate Justice, but I don't know. I'm not gonna. There's like, I feel like some organizations that I'm just like not gonna name. Not true. Interesting. Sorry, there's somebody in the chat who I think is unhappy in a way that I am trying to figure out. But let's see. How do you find the line between being inclusive to minorities and positively mistreating? The don't dox yourself comment is funny because it's like I have just so thoroughly doxed myself like on the internet. Even just like from my time organizing, like my name is just out there, but there are some moments where it still just kind of feels like unwise. So yeah, CGMA, that honestly is a question that I just don't feel qualified to answer. I think that what I try to hold myself to is listening and cultivating a space or being a participant in cultivating a space where people feel like they can raise these concerns. Because what I saw from that incident where, like, it was not only all the women who left, like, a couple of our organizers of color also left, and I chatted with them as well, and some of them said things like, some of them said things that indicated our white organizers, speaking with biases that I don't know if I would have even been able to check in myself. And so listening to them and going, oh, fuck, yeah, like, that is a thing that shouldn't have happened. Here's just one example. One of our organizers participated in a corporate-sponsored affinity group for people of color within the company. And then a white organizer basically said to him, why are you participating in that group? Like, are you a corporate shill? Blah, blah, blah. And this other organizer was like, that feels so weird for, like, my white coworker to be calling me a corporate shill when I'm just working with this group that, like, yes, is, like, officially sanctioned by the company, but it's a space so I just saw that comment. I'm gonna finish my thought before saying that. Anyway, yeah, he said, it felt really shitty for my white coworker to be belittling me for participating in a corporate-sponsored group that a lot of my coworkers of color appreciated having, and that helped them feel more safe. And it's like, yeah, that white organizer should not have said that. No matter, whatever his relationship to authority is, the authority of, like, the company. But yeah, so my answer to this is just always be aware that there are things that you are not going to be able to consider. You might fuck up. You might say something that is offensive to someone in a way that you didn't anticipate. You have to be ready to own that and try to be the kind of person that someone can come to say, hey, this hurt my feelings, or this was uncool of you, or this is perpetuating something that's making our organizing space less safe. So, yeah. Now, okay, what is going on with this chat? I think organizing is a bad idea. I love that. Yeah, feel free to stay in the chat, but yeah, I think a lot of people here will probably not agree with you. Also, hi Josh. I think you just had a medical procedure, if I'm not mistaken. So I hope that went well. I also hope that I haven't missed any questions. If you've asked something that I haven't answered, feel free to, like, put it back in the chat. There was just one thing that I wanted to touch on before I go eat lunch. And that was, a lot of people have been asking me, okay, well, like, how do I start organizing? I've been told by a million different Instagram posts and 8,000 different YouTubers and all of these, chain emails or whatever. Like, I've been told to organize. I've been told to get organized. What the what the fuck does that mean? How do I even do that? And I totally forgot the naming channels that inspired me. I can definitely do that. But I do have a just quick vlog that I just recorded about how to start getting organized, but I don't know how long it will take for me to get that out because everything takes me so long. So I just wanted to say here, for anybody who finds this video or is currently watching, in my opinion, the best thing that you can do if you like the idea of organizing, but you don't know where to start, is to find an existing local organization that you can join. Some of them will have like organizer trainings, and I have found some of them effective and I have found some of them less effective. Like, you're gonna have to shop a little bit to find an organization that clicks with you, because different organizations also have different sort of thresholds for like new member participation. I've been shopping around for some new organizations myself, and some of them will invite a bunch of new members to a town hall, and then they'll run the town hall and just say, hey, so like ice sucks, right? We hate ice. Ice is bad and we hate them. Anyway, thank you for coming. And then they'll send everybody on their way. And I'll go, wait. We all knew that, though. How do we join your organization to help you? And the answer to that might be that, like, some organizations are, I think, primarily seeing themselves in, like, an educational role. I'm trying to think of, like, if there's anything I can tell you about, like, how to shop for an organization to join. Unfortunately, like, you're probably just gonna have to go to some meetings. I think it's most effective to go in person, especially since a lot of us hear about organizing, like, on YouTube or something. We might go into, like, the general strike Discord server, or we might find like our local or state like DSA and join their Discord server. Go somewhere in person if you can. I am very skeptical about online like organizing. I think it's a fun way to meet people. I think it's a great way to feel like you're in community. I don't know that it's a good way to actually organize. Probably a good way to explain why I think that is, organizing is, it's just like this like vibesy word right now. People just say organize without probably being able to really define it. If you look at like what's happening in, Minneapolis, people are creating networks of support. And I think that, that is sort of like the base structure that underlines organizing, is creating networks for distributing knowledge, actions, for activating people. So really, like, when you're trying to get started organizing, you are looking at creating new networks, or you're looking at how to plug into expanding existing networks. And why is this so hard for me to explain? I think that I've just spent so much time in spaces where people don't really need organizing like defined. You just kind of do things and then you say that what you're doing is organizing. But I think that that's part of the problem, is when you get all these new people who are really interested, they want to organize, they want to do this, and then you're just kind of sitting there like, I don't know, talk to your coworkers? And then they go, okay, well, like, talk to my coworkers about what? Like, also, I'm shy. Then I think that that's how we get so many people, like, treading water, commenting on YouTube videos, going, yeah, I really want to organize, but I don't know what that means, and I don't know how. Is this organizing adjacent? See, like, I don't even think so. I can tell you, like, what I have been doing locally because I've been getting involved in more local communities, which is hard to do when you're nomadic. But I I joined a live stream for an organization I was interested in, and then I posted in the chat and I said, hey, is anybody in this neighborhood? Do you want to get together and print and distribute some materials? And a couple people said yeah. And so a couple of us hopped into this is honestly not good OPSEC or whatever, but I tend to play it maybe more fast and loose online than a lot of people would recommend. Whatever. I got some contact info. I met some people who were interested in working together to create some educational supply chains within our neighborhood. We got together at a local library. We printed some materials. The doxing begins. Yeah. I mean, honestly, at this point, I welcome it. So, yeah. What I'm basically saying right now is, where I like to start is by finding people in my local area who are already activated and who are down to do something. And that doesn't always work. Sometimes you're gonna hit up a friend who posts a lot on Instagram and you'll say, hey, there's this meeting tomorrow. Do you want to go with me? And they'll tell you no 17 times. And you'll start to learn oh, okay, just because somebody really hates what's going on right now and is willing to post about it on their platform, that doesn't mean that they want to work together. And that's okay. You need to find the people who are excited to work with you, because some great networks and initiatives will start from just one person walking around their neighborhood and collecting everybody's phone numbers and saying, hey, let's create a neighborhood group chat, and then if anybody needs anything, text the group chat, and maybe so that we know each other better, let's do a monthly potluck. And suddenly, because of that one person's efforts, the entire neighborhood is more welcoming and more safe, and people can ask for what they need, and people can feel supported, and somebody needs a ride to the hospital, or somebody needs emergency childcare, or someone just lost their job, does anybody have any leads? These are some of the building blocks of organizing. Those aren't, the type of organizing where then you all get to storm into your boss's office with a list of demands, but there are lots of different types of organizing behaviors. And yeah, sometimes you'll just have one coworker who really inspires everybody, gets everybody into lunch, and then you all start meeting after work, and you all start talking about how to pressure your boss into getting better working hours. One person can start an initiative, but for most of the people who comment on my videos, when they're saying, I want to know where to start, I want to know what to do, I think that's because an opportunity hasn't felt like it's presented itself. And so for those people, I think that probably the best thing they can do is look for an existing organization that is already attempting to create these networks. I want to take a second to look at some chat. Yeah, there's no one right way into organizing. I think that tends to be kind of my approach too, is I would maybe rather be a little bit more broad with what we... It's funny because I just said this is not an example of organizing, but I don't know, I'm maybe trying to gatekeep less, because I think that we just need more people to feel motivated to start. With more introverted folks, I found that what really helps is to suggest non-group events. You can still design brochures and 3D print whistles. Okay, yeah. For people who really don't like going to enormous group meetings or town halls, because I don't have any... I'm an extrovert. I'm an extrovert. So the way that I found the organizations I'm working with right now is I went to a rally, and some of those organizations were tabling, and so I went around to all the tables in this very overstimulating environment, and I got contact info. I basically talked to the people tabling and I said, hey, I want to participate in your organization. I'd like to learn more about you. Does one of you have time to get coffee with me and chat about what you guys are doing? And then I had like 4 coffee chats. Not everybody wants to dedicate that kind of time. Not everybody wants to have that many conversations with strangers. So I think that it is easier for extroverts. Sorry. I need to like make a friend who's like an introverted organizer and ask them like, hey, what do you recommend that introverts do? Because I'm talking to people watching YouTube videos. I think a lot of y'all are probably introverts, and I want to support my introvert buddies. I just happen to speak from a position of having unlimited social energy, and that is not, I think, relatable to some of my viewers. Let's see. Tough to have the knowledge and the capacity, which is why I think supporting the folks around you is a good start. Help them have capacity to actually focus on something other than their struggles. I do really like that. Yeah, it's important for that one person to be supported because it is really easy to burn out on activism. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. This is what my next video is about, or possibly the video after that. Oh my gosh. If you can even just start by saying thank you to someone in your community who's doing something that you admire, you will be making their whole day. Because activism and organizing are both really stressful and hard, and they take a lot of time. And even just saying like, hey, you're inspiring me, thank you for doing this, that will give that person a little bit more certainty that their community actually appreciates what they're doing. Because if you're doing something in service of your community, but you're not hearing from the community like any positive signals, you can be sitting there going, wait a minute, like, why am I doing this? Like, am I fucking this up? Am I actually doing things that people don't want me to be doing in service of my community? Uh-oh. So, yeah, support people around you who you think should be supported. That is a really, really good place to start. I agree. Let's see. Oh yeah, Josh knows that I don't introvert. I think that I was not always like an extrovert. I think that like moving into my car at some point, you just get so comfortable being in public places at every point because you don't want to hang out in your car. So, you know, when I'm living in my car, I'm spending 90% of my life in public. So I think that you just kind of have to get used to it. I do really quickly want to answer that question that somebody asked about like what other creators inspire me, because I've just left that on the table for like 45 minutes now. There are a lot of creators on YouTube who like fueled my political journey. I think it's probably the same as a lot of you. Before I was making YouTube videos, I was watching, you know, Dan Olson, I was watching Sean, I was watching H Bomber Guy, I was watching PhilosophyTube, I was watching ContraPoints. I was, yeah, I think watching the sort of set of YouTubers that got popular first, expressing a lot of left of center beliefs, and just like probably most of you in this chat, that was really inspiring and really motivating to me. But I think that what will not surprise anybody is probably my biggest like source of inspiration was Innuendo Studios. And occasionally I'll get comments on Changemakers that are like, oh, you know, this is like the alt-left playbook or whatever, and I don't agree with that. But I have probably watched all of his videos on the order of, you know, 10 times. I think that the way he expresses the way that he structures his opinions, I always found that very, what are even like the right words for me to use? The probably silly way for me to phrase this is I've said to multiple friends, like, Ian Danskin helped me learn how to think. And I think that that is accurate. I see certain ways that different creators on this platform will express ideas, and that will, I feel like, expose the way that they think about things, the way that they like go through the world, and take in all of this information, and then like shake it up, and then like figure out a way to communicate it to everybody else. Like that entire process, I think, is so fascinating. And there are some YouTubers who again, this is one of those questions where I'm like, why am I struggling so hard to answer this? I just love the way that he expresses his ideas. Wow, I'm not keeping up with the chat at all. This is consistently amazing to me, like how live streamers do multiple things at once. But scrolling. Hank and John Green, I think, actually, yes, also really inspired me, because I think that they're a great example of creators that are very solid in their beliefs, but that also are curious people. They clearly are constantly evolving and communicating their own process of evolution. And so I think that it's nice to see that you can have this balance between steadfastness, but also adaptability. Two things that, you know, don't necessarily feel like they can always exist in a person. And they also, generally, I think, espouse this sort of compassion, and they're soft, you know? They aren't the way that I think a lot of us who came up on the internet learned how to talk. I think a lot of us learned how to be like as combative as possible, make fun of the other team. And so I think it's nice always to be reminded that that's not what we have to do. Charisma is a skill and can be grown. I agree with that. I think that having a couple failure experiences when you're public speaking, or, you know, I was on an improv team in college, which is probably not very surprising. And there's nothing more character defining than flubbing a joke in front of 60 people who already think you're a nerd. So, like, experiencing that kind of failure really, it's fortifying. To some extent, I think sometimes people who think they're introverts are actually extroverts lacking energy. Yeah, these are things that I don't know about. But additionally, like, I think that when people are introverted and they want to get into organizing, they will start with their friends, because that feels easiest. I actually think that's harder, because if you are that person in your friend group who is like trying to radicalize your homies, you are not necessarily maybe feeling supported all the time. I don't know if you relate to like leaving a dinner where you got really incensed about politics, and you could tell that all your friends who are very happy to talk with you about like books or D&D or sports, like all of a sudden they're kind of like, and then you feel, oh, I made it awkward, didn't I? Like, damn it. I'm always the awkward political friend. It's nice if you have a different outlet. I understand the impulse to go to the people who are closest to you, to start your kind of like organizing like experience, to text your group chat and say, hey, I'm going to start going to meetings. Does anybody want to come with me? That's totally fine. In fact, like, I do that. And some people will take you up on it. But then I think it can feel like a little extra sting if you convince your friend to come with you to a meeting, and then you can tell that they're not having fun or they don't want to go back. I just find that really awkward and uncomfortable. So usually I leave my friends out of it. Like, they know what I'm doing. They can always ask me about it. But I will oftentimes look to work with people who are already activated in my community. That's kind of the place where I start. And, you know, somebody might say, like, well, but wait, like, then what, why are you ignoring the people who aren't already in the movement? Like, isn't that counterproductive? Like, listen, there are enough people who want to be in the movement and don't know where to start. Like, it's really helpful to build yourself a little base of support with people who are already involved, they're already motivated, you're getting energy from each other, you're giving energy to each other. Then start expanding to the people who are expressing an interest in getting active, but they maybe don't know what to do yet. Pull those people in. There will always be more of those people. You don't need to go to your best friend who, like, always, like, rolls their eyes every time you talk about politics. You can just keep them as your non-political friend. Like, your success or failure as an organizer does not hinge on converting your best friend. So, yeah. Sometimes as an introvert, it's extremely useful to learn that it is worth it to spend energy on social risk. I agree with that. I basically have to beg my friends to fill out an auto-generated send an email to your account. Yeah, and that doesn't feel really good all the time. When you're feeling like the world is overwhelming you, it's so nice to have a small group of people that you can hit up and say, hey, I'm really pissed off about this thing that just happened. Can we meet up and talk about what we can do right now? And know that they are down. So, like, those people are out there. You might not even really like hanging out with them outside of organizing. Like, the people that I'm working with right now, we have legitimately never hung out. But we go flyer together. Like, we'll meet at the library and we'll create materials, and then we will take a cute little stroll through a line of local businesses to ask if we can, you know, keep resources, you know, taped to their wall or something, and then we'll go home and we'll hang out with our friends who don't want to do that stuff with us. So, I mean, there's a reason outreach always seems to be a consistent topic of meetings. Yeah. I feel like I've noticed this thing in some organizations where they always want more bodies, but then they don't necessarily know what to do with them when they get them. That's a strategy topic, but I mean, that was us too sometimes. Like, in my old organizing committee, the, like, more climate related one, I don't think we handled outreach super well, because our normal organizing committee meetings would be like 12 to 18 people. And then suddenly we would have like a rally, or there would be some big event, and then people would get interested in us and they would come to our meeting and we'd be like, yeah, do any of you want to throw your lives away and join us and work for 8 hours during the day and then work for 6 hours at night and cry with us? And they would go, no, but good luck. Yeah, so that was something that we never completely figured out. I think Amazon Employees for Climate Justice was good about this when that was a thing I was involved in. I don't know how they're doing now because COVID kind of just changed the entire landscape, but they would have a rally or an event, and then they would say, okay, come to this meeting. We have a seminar. We have a 30-minute seminar for you. We're going to teach you some things about, generally it was like environmental justice. And then we're going to circle up and you're going to have some kind of guided exercise to talk to the people around you. I think that that's really effective because, especially in a workplace, like, these people are they're your peers, they're your coworkers. Like, making connections amongst those people, that's really valuable. Suddenly you're meeting real people in your real workplace who care about the things that you do. You feel less alone. And so even just that, you're giving the people something immediately. And then at the end, they would generally have some kind of call to action, like, oh, if you want to attend an organizer training, or if you want to meet with one of us, put your name on this sheet. And so really good kind of step-by-step process for bringing people in. More often than not, I will go to a meeting for an organization that's gaining a lot of traction, because an organization gains traction when something huge happens. Like, an anti-surveillance organization will get a bunch of random new interest after some news with Palantir. You know, some of our immigrants' rights coalitions suddenly get this huge influx of new interested people when we see ICE brutalizing people. Some of those organizations aren't always prepared to bring in lay people, to bring in someone who's like, can you give me an action to do once a month at most? A lot of orgs are like, no, like, we don't have those. So that's a strategy thing for every different organization. But I think I'm gonna wrap up here in a second. Somebody had asked earlier what's for lunch, and the answer is always leftovers. Yeah, I have leftover noodles. That's not very exciting. Lots of people have enthusiasm but no sense of what their skills... Oh yeah, of what skills of theirs will be useful to the group. Yeah, it's tough. It is really tough to figure out where you can plug in, especially because, like, you don't want to overstep. You don't want to be haughty. I messaged an organization recently because I was using some of their materials. They had requested that folks assist in, like, distributing materials. This was great. They had a town hall and then they had a plan. They said, hey, if any of you can help us do XYZ, please help us do that. And they gave people instructions that would ensure that they didn't need to be held. So yeah, I started distributing some materials, and I noticed that there were some places where the instructions were perhaps a little bit unclear. And so I just messaged them and I said, hey, I noticed that this flyer could be trimmed down in this way. I have experience as a technical writer. Would it be all right for me to talk to somebody about assisting with some materials editing? And that's always weird because, like, nobody's ideas are the most correct. Like, there could be a reason that they wanted these flyers to look exactly the way that they did. And so it's like, offering help is also very strange because, like, everything is, like, subjective. Like, so anytime, like, a graphic designer is saying, like, hey, I'd love to redesign your logo, or hey, I'd love to design some new graphics for you, or a web editor is saying, like, hey, if you need web help, sometimes it's, like, stressful for an organization to start a new collaboration with someone because, like, I could suck at what I do. They don't know that. And so if they spend their limited volunteer time having a meeting with me, and then I come back and my flyers are awful, and now they feel terrible because I wasted my time and they're not going to use my flyers. So I think that, like, establishing credibility up front, or, like, bringing an idea to someone and letting them know, like, you don't have to use this, can save the volunteers a lot of time. Rather than just saying, like, hi, I'm a web dev, what can I do? Being able to say, like, hi, this form on your website is broken in this way. I would love to help fix it. Here are my creds, you know? The leftovers came from an Asian fusion restaurant that does ping pong. Ping pong and Asian fusion. I was really skeptical, but it was actually really good. And so I apologize to my friend who works there for being skeptical of his weird Asian fusion ping pong restaurant. I was thinking about organizing because some of the people in my life, I never thought about all these negative aspects. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm sorry if I'm coming across as, like, very negative. I don't want to overstate the negativity. I want people to be prepared that it's not always going to work immediately, and it's not always going to be fun. I think part of the reason I want to do that is because I like fiction writing in my spare time, and I would hear all these people say things like, oh, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, or I'm so lucky because every day I get to do the thing I love, and like, I live and breathe my fiction work. And so I would be sitting there struggling against a chapter and thinking, what is wrong with me? What's the matter with me that I don't love this all the time? And that sometimes I'd feel totally incapable, and I don't know how to solve my plot problems, and, like, that must mean that I'm not cut out for this, because all these other writers seem to be enjoying themselves all the time and saying how wonderful this is. It was so nice for me to realize that that's not true. That you can love something and you can dedicate yourself to something, and you can still sometimes feel like you suck at it, and you can still sometimes feel like it's hard and boring, and that doesn't mean that it's not worth doing, or that you're not cut out for it, or that it's not your calling. And I feel the same way about organizing. I went to a town hall 2 weeks ago. I spent, my entire evening at that town hall, and I just didn't really click with the organization. I gave my number to somebody to have a one-on-one, and I got ghosted. Like, sometimes things are going to be disappointing, and, like, they're not going to work out, and you're going to put energy in that doesn't feel matched, but that doesn't mean that you're bad at it. And that doesn't mean that you're not meant to be doing it. So I hope that makes sense. Oh, that's an interesting point, Willow. I think that if you're worried about some of this with friends, they may not stick around as friends if things ever worsened for you and you needed the help. I guess that's a reply to, I love the work that you do, and I want to be more proactive in my activism. Unfortunately, I'm a teacher. I'm overworked and under-resourced. Okay, so those are two separate comments, but to that second one, being overworked and under-resourced, geez, I don't like my advice here, because it's not real advice. The reason I burned out was because I did too much. I don't want to advise that other people do that. I was waking up at 6 a.m. to take meetings with other time zones, and then I would go to work, and then I would get home and I would generally hop into a meeting immediately, and then I would spend some time in a small group, like editing a doc or an email or a flyer or some kind of plan. And then at the end of the day, I would tell my partner at the time, like, hey, I'm going to take an edible, because that's the only way I will not be able to use my computer. And so that was, like, the only way that I would stop working, was if I just made myself not capable of working. Telling you this, you can hear that this is not healthy. Like, no one should do that. I would not tell anybody to have that sort of, like, commitment, to the cause. And I also want to say that if anybody is experiencing burnout, I want to make sure that what is said to you is not what was said to me, because I think probably one of the most hurtful things I've ever heard from another organizer was, I was basically asking my OC for help, my organizing committee for help, telling them, like, I feel so burned out. I feel like if I stop working, this is all going to fall apart. And so I don't know what to do. I don't know how to stop, because any individual thing that needs to be done, I feel like if it doesn't get done immediately, it'll be my fault, because I could just work harder and do it. And then someone who I had looked up to in organizing basically said to me, like, don't say this to anyone. They said, effectively, like, your burnout is your fault. Like, you're doing this to yourself, and if you don't stop, like, the movement will suffer. There was, like, I think no attempt to, like, engage with this feeling that certain tasks were, like, not being picked up. There was no idea of, like, or there was no discussion of how can we fix this so that we don't kind of have this one, like, load-bearing person who feels like she has to do everything. Like, how do we delegate? Or, like, are there any tasks we can identify that genuinely don't need to be done? You definitely don't want to tell somebody that their burnout is their own fault, and that this thing they love, like the movement, will suffer if they don't stop. Like, that's not going to help them. Yeah, I should make a burnout video at some point. That doesn't necessarily at all help answer the question of, like, how does an overworked, under-resourced person be more proactive in their activism. I suppose that I am feeling, like, a reluctance to answer that question, because I do think it's important to take care of yourself. I think that if there are other people that you can enlist, like delegate as much as you possibly can. Like, I might need to think more about this one. Let's see. Josh, did you say something helpful? That's awesome. In the interest of an earlier point about thanking those who inspire you to keep on this marathon run, lots of thanks to you for making these videos. Oh, I'm glad. I'm really glad this is helpful. It's like sometimes hard for me to tell, and so like seeing comments where people are saying like, thank you, this made me feel better today. I would not keep making this series if people were not letting me know that they were helpful. So like, thank you. If you've ever like commented on a video to say this helped me, like you are directly responsible for me being able to like keep making these. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Josh says, as an educator myself, I'll suggest that if you have a union, finding out ways to engage with that and push the existing structure can help a lot. That is something that I would agree with. If you are in a workplace and it is a workplace that everybody recognizes is like eating people alive, working within the work, like, it's a good opportunity. It's tough because I've talked to some people who are in such shitty workplaces that the turnover is so high that they cannot get an organizing structure in place because people just keep leaving. It's like nobody wants to be there longer than 5 months. So it's harder to build momentum. I think schools are probably different in that regard. But this is an area where I don't have a lot of expertise. I've never worked in education. But yeah, hopefully a lot of your colleagues are feeling kind of similar. And here maybe is one thing I would say. Don't underestimate the importance of giving people like a shoulder to cry on, a person to complain to, someone to commiserate with. Because there might be somebody who walks into your workplace every single day and they're really quiet. They don't seem like they have any interest in talking to you. And then they just go home at the end of every day. But if you like ask that person to lunch and you say, hey, like, have you been liking the job? Like, how are you doing? Suddenly they might tell you something that like they might open up to you. And then suddenly this person that you thought was very cold, maybe they have just been like shouldering all of this by themselves. Because they were like having a hard time. They felt that their best option in their job was just to like dissociate as much as possible and just get through it. And then by you, their coworker, showing them that people care, they might not like implicitly trust their coworkers to be supportive and to ask them what they need and to care about what they need. So yeah, you might be surprised by how much you get done just by like talking to the people around you. In fact, that's the first thing that I do at any new job I'm in. The first thing I do is I try to get lunch or coffee or have a video chat with every single person. That's generally the goal. And I don't even think of it as like this huge like subversive thing. Like, no, if I'm going to be a good coworker, if I'm going to be a good peer, if I'm going to try to push my workplace in the direction that I want it to go in, and if I am going to seize on any opportunities that maybe exist to make things better, I want people to know they can talk to me. Like, I want people to know that I'm there and they can trust me, and if anything happens, like, I have their back. So establishing those one-on-one relationships in the workplace, like, very, very helpful. Okay, thank you for like keeping the chat active even when I'm like not paying attention. It sounds like a lot of you are like helping each other, and so that is really wonderful. Oh, hi Elrose. Yeah, my last job we were gearing up to unionize and all the people who were spearheading it just ended up leaving. Yep, that is common. That's common. I've had that happen too. I've tried to think of it as just like a learning experience, and I think that that's also why I've tried to think of my organizing as being a supportive coworker, because like it's tempting as a person like on the left to have this end goal of like starting a union or disrupting some structure or whatever. But like, what you should know about organizing is that the middle steps should feel gratifying in, okay, wow, we got there, a positive message. If you think about organizing as not bringing about some end goal, because that end goal might never happen, instead, tell yourself, I am becoming the supportive person that my neighbors need, and that my coworkers need, and that my friends need. That is what should always be like at the center of your heart when you are developing yourself as an organizer in your community. At my last job, there were some problems, but the real focus was, I'm going to talk to all of my coworkers because I want to make sure that I'm in as much of a position as possible to be able to react if people need me, and to be able to stand up for someone if they are being mistreated. And even just something as simple as, if somebody needs to have a call with somebody to complain about something, I want them to know that they at least have one person. Making people feel less alone. That's a thing that you can do, and that's meaningful. So, yeah. I don't know how much that's still leaning into the kind of extrovert energy, because I've thought about this before, and it's a lot to say to people. Try to endear yourself to strangers consistently. That's stressful for a lot of people. But if you're looking for something to do and you're in like a workplace, maybe here's a thing that you can try to do this year. Try once a week to reach out to a coworker that you've never had a one-on-one interaction with and just say, hey, I'm just trying to meet as many people as possible because I like feeling connected in my job. If you'd be down to get food sometime, I'd just love to hang. It sometimes feels kind of awkward, but I don't generally get people saying no. And then it's nice because you end up building longer lasting friendships. Like, even just yesterday, I hung out with my former coworker, because like we're buds now, because meeting people is good. Anyway, I'm an introvert, but working with people I like is way better than strangers. I think often we confuse introversion with anxiety. Okay, that's also very real. I definitely have like a people-pleasing version of anxiety, which I think is sometimes helpful when I'm trying to work with others in person, because like I desperately want everyone to get along and feel comfortable and feel happy. So I think that leads me to take on these sort of group cohesion responsibilities, and that does come from a place of anxiety. But it's anxiety for good. And it also leads me to release videos very slowly, because you cannot people please on the internet, unfortunately. Sam, I don't want the stream to end, but I do want to remind you that you can talk about this forever. Yeah, that's true. Well, I am going to do that. That sounds like a good idea. Thank you for hanging out. It was nice to get a little bit of live stream practice too, because this is like a very different type of video that I'm used to making. I like getting the opportunity to answer questions that people have, so I would like to do one of these again in the future. And of course I'm gonna make you all go look at my dog before we break. And it's gonna be awkward because I still cannot walk. There we go. Okay. All right, Benny. Say goodbye to the internet. Perfect. Okay. All right. Bye, folks.